So how is everybody doing? Well, welcome you to the City Hall and welcome to the Plan Commission meeting. With that, I open the Plan Commission meeting for Tuesday, September 12, 2017. All right, the roll call.
Commissioners Paulson,
Here.
Hubbard,
Here.
Farrar,
Here.
Zellers,
Here.
Olson,
Here.
Thorne,
Here.
and Reed.
Here.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
And I have 2 corrections to the minutes. On page, on page 5, item 6, I accidentally put Muirfield instead of Muirhead. Don't want to change their name, so we have
It's
to
a
change
very
that.
important name.
Yes, and I apologize for that. I had it right the other times I put it in there, so I apologize. But that needs to be corrected. Also, on Gateway, which is number 4 on page 1, it should also say that there's a list of people attached to the minutes that registered either way, but didn't want to speak at the hearing. So that needs to get added too. That was left off. I apologize for those 2 corrections.
Okay, with those 2 corrections, I need a motion to approve.
Move approval as amended.
Oh, wow, they're first and second, so.
That's quick. Second.
Yes, that he is, isn't he? So,
Dennis, did you make it?
I made the motion, I think,
got that.
before.
Yes, you
And
did.
then,
Yes.
okay, got it.
Absolutely.
It was a noise,
okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the minutes motion is passed. Okay, so we can have this quick one. We got still 4 more minutes. So the second item on the agenda is the design review for building modification and signage, Chicken Run Restaurant at 6410 University Avenue. Mark.
I don't know if the applicant is here. Probably not. They're from out of state, I think. This is a request for 2 facade signs on the existing building that is formerly Crandall's next to Sonic. And this was an unusual situation because the building doesn't have a parallel street frontage, so I am recommending approval based on the fact that each sign is essentially facing a different direction of traffic, different travel direction. So the signs adhere to the maximum limitations for wall signs, so I recommended approval of the design and the sign package. The awnings are being removed as well, and the facade colors is changing as well. So it's, the recommendation is for design review approval and including signage changes.
So I'll move approval of the design modifications and sign package.
Second.
Okay, let the discussion begin.
Are both signs the same size?
No, I don't have it in front of me, but they are different because the different square footage requirements on each side, so they are not the same size.
Okay.
Are they repainting the whole building?
Yeah.
To what color?
White and green with green trim. I think the green trim is already there.
At least it's not orange. That's
The one
sign is orange. Okay.
The one when you are going east is much bigger on this side of the building.
Originally, they wanted a larger sign on the larger facade, and I said that was too big, so they reduced it to meet our ordinance requirements.
Just out of curiosity, is this a carryout restaurant?
I'm not sure. They have a drive-through, I believe, so it won't be it will be mostly carry-out, I think. It won't necessarily all be drive-through, but I don't think there's seating inside. It's too small a space.
That's what I thought.
So
It will be similar to Crandall's, I think,
Yeah.
except that you got the chicken rather than whatever else, so. Yes, David, you got,
To approve. I think we already have one.
I think we already did.
No.
We already got a
Crandall's
motion
was
to approve.
takeout.
Sorry.
We're having a discussion apparently.
yes, so are we ready to vote then?
Yep.
Any more discussion? Okay, if there's no more discussion, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passed unanimously. So let's see.
maybe you
Well,
can squeeze in number 3 quickly.
It's
Table beer can
okay, let's
sign.
go to number 3. It's a specific implementation plan, SIP modification for awnings and signage for Middleton Center, long table beer cafe in New Middleton Center.
Andrea, are you here? Oh, there you are. Okay. Yeah, if you have any questions, the applicant is here tonight. This is the space that is on the western end of the new development. So if you're standing in front of Village Green, you'd be looking to the right, and that's where their space is. First floor.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, Andrea, do you want to say anything while you are here? If you want to say anything, you can go there, otherwise, okay, anybody has any questions to Andrea? Yes?
No, so just looking at the staff comments, it says, staff approval of the window and door signage as long as it adheres to sign code parameters.
We don't have a specific proposal yet. I have no doubt that they will adhere. They just didn't have it all the details at this point.
But that's what you meant in your motion, right?
Yes, then motion does include that,
Right, just want to make,
Yep.
as a minor SFP modification with staff.
Yeah,
For awnings,
signs.
it's awnings and signage, right?
But yeah, they're very unobtrusive.
okay, any
Just a
more?
point of clarification.
Yes, David.
There is no lettering on either of the awnings.
I think there's going to be logos. Yeah, small logos.
On the awning? On the sloping part of the awning?
Can you come up to the microphone? Thank you.
We are working with Baraboo Awnings, who I know does a lot of work in Middleton and knows the ordinances, so we'll comply with what fits in within the parameters, but we are hoping for the logo on the sloping portion to maximize the visibility from Aurora, as well as on Hubbard.
I think that's a dangerous slope if we start going down that way.
Wow.
Sorry.
We have
I
awning,
didn't mean to say slope either.
a slippery slope.
What's the slippery slope?
We have signage on awnings at Cayuga Court, the shopping center with Denny's and others there. So I saw it as comparable to that, and our ordinance specifically says that signs on awnings shall not exceed 15% of the vertical area of the awning. So the intent is for it to be a minor part of the awning.
The logo is just letters. There are no pictures on the logo. It just spells out long table.
So you want to make sure it adheres to the sign code, the parameters.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, you're saying that it is within, they can do it.
Our code allows it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you happy, David, or you have anything that?
Not happy, but I can't do anything if the code says it's all right.
Well, talk to Mark, so, I mean, the code can be modified, so if there's something which really makes you uneasy, so. Okay, any more questions either to Andrea or anyone else? Any more discussion? Okay, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously, and you can go and work on it. So.
All right, we'll get some
All
signs
right,
printed.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, it's 7:08, so we have two public hearings. So I'm going to open the public hearing for request for conditional use permit for Plaza Development 3 LLC, Kent Johnson Holiday Inn Express on 8353 Murphy Drive.
And we do have one person registering to speak, other position.
Okay,
Kurt
okay.
Weltman, and he's here.
Okay, all right. So the first one to speak here is,
Do we hear from the applicant first?
okay.
I'm just trying to remember the
Okay, so
protocol.
how do you want to do it? So do you want to
This is
For
for,
the
take
staff
it from
comments.
here then, or?
sure, Greg Held is here from Canothy and Bruce,
Okay,
could present on the,
Want us to go through the presentation again? We did the concept presentation last time. We were.
Yeah.
I got the same
So-
one. Kind of go over it.
quickly, well, you like him to go?
No, I mean, I think we did that last time. It just,
Well,
I mean, have
I don't know if the-
questions or
Leaf
anything.
wasn't there, why don't you, maybe do in a couple of minutes, so.
I could do a couple of,
Yes.
yeah, really quick, and then any questions that come up, we can. Is there an easel? There was an easel last.
there is.
Okay, go on.
Easily done. He started it, just for the record.
I didn't say anything. Mark.
Well, you did ask the question anyway, so that's all right.
Thanks, Abby. Seems darker in here than normal.
Yeah, yeah, the times are changing.
Yeah.
We're outside, the sun's getting cold.
But here it does. That hurts my eyes.
On one side.
Here we go.
I don't like those easels.
Name is correct.
Is this where you guys want it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Somebody will graduate too. All right. So our site here on Murphy Drive is bounded by University Avenue, Deming Way, Murphy Drive, and then off to the west. Just for points of reference, we have Costco here to the north, UPS, Discount Tire, and then we've got, not shown currently on this aerial, but built since this was taken, is the River Valley Bank. So we have this site right in here, we're bounded by the ATC power line here on the south. We have a sewer easement on the west edge, and the ATC easement on this edge here. And then we've got the River Valley Bank has their stormwater here. So I bring these points up just because it does impact the way we move this site out and why the building is where it is and why we have as much parking as we do. So the site plan, and since I have submitted this and we colored this up, okay. Since then, I have met with the fire department. They had a couple of ideas for input. They wanted to get a fire access in here, so I had to soften the radiuses on the curbs here, but it didn't impact it too much. We're going to move this, at the recommendation of the planning staff, we're going to move this trash enclosure over as much as we can to align it with the parking. And then we did have an issue with the number of accessible parking stalls. I think we have 4 here, and we'll make those adjustments.
You are supposed to have 5, right?
5, yeah. We do a lot of R2, which is 2%.
Okay.
This is, our guy laid out the site originally.
Do you want
But we'll get that adjusted, we'll find.
Okay, thank you.
We since colored all the elevations of the building, and I remember signage was kind of one of the issues previously. What I did is I pulled the signage off of the existing East Side Hotel and put it in the same locations on this. They are going to work with a signage consultant to finalize the signage and then go through the approval process on that separately.
Mhm.
But I think it's a pretty good indication of the size and locations that the signage will be. I've got color samples for some of the materials here. I also do have a sample of the stone. Previous building that they did was a cultured stone. We're considering using a thin real stone on this one, possibly getting some reds in it to pick up the reds in the terracotta. So that's still a little up in the air. I do have the brick and the other materials if you're interested in seeing them. So this would be the east elevation and the south elevation along Highway 14 or University Avenue. This would be facing Tires Plus or Deming Way in the distance. And then west elevation, which would be the Eagle Drive side, or there's a warehouse immediately adjacent. This would be the Murphy Drive elevation. So.
Okay. Any questions for Greg?
Well, this is the public hearing, right?
Yep, it's
So
a
we have
public hearing, yeah. Okay, so what's,
We have one person that's registered to speak, other position. It's
Okay.
Kurt Welton. He's here in the
okay,
front row.
so Kurt, you want to speak? All right, go ahead. You want to remove these things? So Greg, you can take these down if you want to, so that's okay, so.
My name is Curtis D. Welton. I'm president of Welton Enterprises, Inc., which is the general partner of Welton Family Limited Partnership, which owns about a dozen warehouses along University Avenue there. We're roofing them all right now in a big project, if you've noticed that going on. But I own the property right immediately adjacent to the hotel here. and it's a big warehouse building, and there's another one next to it, and then you get to Eagle Drive. And so I think what he wants to do is wonderful. I have no problem with it, except for I just want to make sure that if you make a motion to approve it, that you make sure that he puts a fence up along our property line, because otherwise people could be parking in his parking lot and wandering into my warehouse district. And it really, you got to, I think the two uses are sort of incompatible unless there's a fence there. And if there's a fence there, that makes it hard to, just walk from your car to the warehouse area, then I think we're just good to go. There's a lot less problems with police calls or whatever, because most of the time these warehouses right now are empty at night, but I don't know who my next tenant will be and what they're going to want to do and when their trucks show up. And I think a fence would be a really good idea to make us even better neighbors than we are already. So anyone has any questions, that's all I really wanted to say.
Yes, good.
Can you show me on the map which property is yours? I'm just trying to figure out which side. To the west. Okay.
It's just two white rectangles on the map.
Can you bring that closer? I just want to...
I have very limited vision, so...
You can show me.
Okay. You just show it to them. Yeah, it's those two, and I got more going down the street, but I guess that's the...
So it's these
Those two,
buildings here,
okay.
which are, right immediately to the west of the
I think if you just put the
project.
fence down, it could be chain link, I don't care what it looks like, it doesn't have to be fancy.
It's, there's some vegetation, this lot is in a vacant state right now, so
It's been vacant forever since the Indians lived here, so up till now, it didn't really matter, because there was nobody there, but if he puts a hotel on there, cars in and out and all that, and I just think a fence would really be a good
Can you bring that over here too, please?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because like I said, now at night, there's nobody around, the deliveries are during the day to the businesses that are in the buildings, but that could change.
Right, okay.
And then it could be dangerous, or it could be just not safe for people to
Any
wander
other
around.
questions? Or-
No, I was just going to...
Okay.
In our discussion, I'll ask staff their views on it.
Okay.
Okay, am I done?
Thank you.
Yes, good, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Does the developer have an objection
I was
to
going to say, is there a
a
problem,
fence?
yes, with doing this?
Sir?
That's a developer, I can't answer that.
What do you think, Ken?
Yeah, somebody
Yeah.
should go up to who's ever going to address it.
I guess I never really thought about it before when we were doing the whole thing. It adds costs, so I wasn't really putting it in the, and if I put a fence up, it's not going to be chain link because, I'm going to spend a bunch of money doing that. I'm not going to just throw up a barrier.
It has to look good, yeah.
I guess my concern would be a lot less than the neighbors as far as, I don't expect, we're in the hotel business, has been for a number of years, this type of property. The clientele isn't rummaging across the street. Really, if you talk about the parking lot, our entire hotel is a fence. The parking lot's on the other side of it. I don't even have to pull up the site plan, but we've kind of created a barrier already by doing that. I don't know if a berm or some landscaping would achieve a similar, concept. I don't know. I guess my only, do you put a fence on one side versus around the whole thing? And I know you guys don't want that because we're talking about pedestrian access the other way to Monks and Roost Chris and stuff. So I wasn't necessarily prepared to answer the question. But so where do you go? Do you put it just on the lot line? Can you get around it? I guess I'd have to give it more thought.
Yeah, and I think you got some good ideas. Maybe landscape or some other things can accomplish the same purpose, which Kurt will be happy with, because that may be even better than putting a fence. So, fence would look ugly, so.
Yeah, so
anyway.
I guess to answer the question, I'm open to looking at it and ideas.
Okay.
To give a direct answer of, do I want to put a fence up or are we open to that? I would have to defer to kind of some thought on it.
And that's okay. You work with the staff and work it out, so.
Yeah.
But our code does not require a fence. No. And you do have the patio on that side of the property.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But it could just be a relatively small fence that's coming out from the building around the parking lot. No, it wouldn't have to go all the way down. As you say, the building is a fence.
That's a good idea.
I've changed what I said because I didn't see the plan before.
Okay.
But if, the thing about crime is it if there's eyeballs, there's no crime.
Yes.
So, okay, so now that I see the plan, we probably don't need anything up here because there's eyeballs on the street. But back down here, if a little bit of fence went there, I think you'd do wonders for the long-term management, the crime management of this whole.
Okay, I guess this is a public hearing. You guys can get together and work it out. And I think it's a small issues which can be sorted out if you just sit down and discuss about it. So, and work with the staff. So, so what is anything? Is there anyone else?
No, there's nobody else for this.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak with respect to this public hearing part here? Is there anyone else who wants to speak on the conditional use permit for plaza development? Well, if there's no other takers, I close the hearing part here and we move on to the second public hearing, which is the request for rezoning from Highway Business B3 to Planned Development District General Implementation Plan for Trista Mixed Use, including Middleton Market, on 7622 Lisa Lane. So what do you want to speak anything first or say anything?
I don't know if they want a presentation or anything.
Do you guys want any presentation from the developer, or you have already
Seen it.
We've seen it a couple times.
seen it a few times?
Then there's one person
Okay.
that's registering in support without speaking, and that's Lee Bruce. And there are two people registered to speak in support. Jean Whitish is the first.
Yes, Gene Whitish, you're up. All right.
Good evening, Jean Whitish, 3213 Laura Lane in Middleton, representing Bowling Green Partnership. I'm one of the partners. Lee Bruce is the other partner, so we are the landowners.
Lee, you want to raise your hand? The gentleman is, thank you.
I've operated there for quite a period of time, and over the last few years, I've obviously gone through a major transition with housing and feel like this is just a continuation of another compatible use and are definitely here to support the project. They've been really great to work with so far. So.
Oh, so you like it, huh?
I like it.
Good,
So,
good. All
love
right.
to see something happen.
Any questions for Jean, folks, while she's there? Any questions? All right, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
And what
So
happened to that other one?
now the next one is
Linda Larson.
there's Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda Larson, and I'm a resident of Middleton Township. My husband and I moved here about 7 years ago. We're both engineers and work remote and could work anywhere in the country, and we chose Middleton. And at the time we came, we considered building, but knew it would be nearly impossible to find a rental with 3 bedrooms, and also needing that extra space for offices. And hear the same thing from our neighbors who are now out of Middleton Township with us, who would like to downsize, that they don't want to pay the high downtown rents, and they also possibly don't want to live next to a golf course and are really limited by options for that city center rental atmosphere where they can travel, but yet have affordable living in the space they need. And similarly, I was at Miller Park last week for a manufacturing conference, and every manufacturer in the state talked about the need to retain and attract more millennial employees. But yet, housing options for those skilled workers and not quite tech workers that would have the income for a high downtown apartment, but yet also want that city center type atmosphere. So I'm in fully support of the project, both for myself to shop, to use the retail and the market and different options here in downtown Middleton, but also to keep those extra options for housing for the boomers who might want to downsize but still have space, and also the younger talent moving into the area.
Wow. Any questions for her, if anybody has any quick one? All right, so thank you, Linda.
And then we also put at your place a compilation of 3 letters that we received in support of it, letters or emails in support of the project. And those are Michael and Linda Everly, Jocelyn Friedman, who works with Jacob Klein, and then Steve Rose. So you have those at your desk, and those are part of the public record for the rezoning.
Anybody else who wants to speak who didn't register for it. If anybody wants to speak, you still have time. Anybody else want to speak on this part of the public hearing? If there's no one who wants to speak, I'm going to close the rezoning for Highway Business B3 now. Okay, then we move on to the... Okay, so the next item is request for conditional use permit Plaza Development 3 LLC Kent Johnson Holiday Inn Express. So you want to
I don't really have anything to add beyond what was included in the staff comments for the this meeting, but I guess just to call out some of the items. The engineer who's here alluded to this. They're short a little bit on parking per our ordinance. I think it's a total of 6 stalls, and we're comfortable with that reduction in parking. There are 2 stubbed driveways that exist at Tires Plus, and right now they're being used for parking. Our hope was that they could be provide a connection to the hotel property. We were thinking, if there are visitors that aren't familiar with the area that are trying to turn into the hotel, they see the hotel, they turn in early, they realize that they've turned into the wrong parking lot, they have to go back out to Murphy. Also, guests who are staying at the hotel likely will want to use the restaurants that are nearby, and many of them will walk, and we want them to be able to walk. But, if they've got another stop on the way, that they might end up driving their car, so they have to go out to Murphy and go in. It's not a huge issue, but the original intent for the Tires Plus property clearly was that it would connect to this property when it developed. We know from talking with the developer of this project as well as Tires Plus, neither of them support having the connection, so I don't know if there's any will from the Plan Commission to require that, but I just wanted to point it out. Bicycle parking, their plans currently aren't showing any bicycle parking. Our standard is 10% of the total parking stalls provided, so we'd recommend a bike rack near the main entrance that could accommodate 10 bicycles. We have a lot of guests who come to visit this area and bring their bicycles, so it would be a nice addition. Landscaping looked good to us. There was an area next to the smaller parking lot, and we wondered if some additional screening could be provided. Part of the goal of our landscaping ordinance is to screen parking lot from public rights-of-way. Lighting plan is good. Signage is going to be brought forward at a later date. The last thing is that there's a sidewalk, and there's a link that's missing currently at River Valley Bank, and I'll take responsibility for that because when I did the staff comments for that in 2014, I did not call that out as an issue. We're going to be reaching out to River Valley Bank to talk to them about adding that segment of sidewalk. We'd really like to see it there. And I spoke with the developer for this project, and they were supportive of adding that linkage along their property as well. And our recommendation is for approval of the conditional use and design review approval contingent on resolution of engineering staff comments, the addition of the sidewalk, water resources approval, completion of the TIA, and any recommended improvements that are required based on the results of the TIA, and addition of landscaping, if possible, between the stormwater management area and the smaller parking area, and then again the addition of the accessible parking stalls to meet the state's requirements.
And you will add discussion with the neighbor to sort things out.
Yep.
Okay, so
I'll move approval.
Okay.
As Abby has outlined, I can go through and read that all again, but
yes,
it's basically what Abby just said. Recommend approval for conditional use and design review approval contingent upon all the stuff
all
Abby
of
was
those
just
things.
enumerated.
Yes, and need a second.
Second.
All right, yes.
Should this include some mention of those bike places? Bike
Yeah,
stalls?
that's all
Oh,
part
yeah.
of the motion,
Yep.
Dennis.
Yeah.
Everything that she said,
She didn't say that.
It wasn't
she
listed.
said we need 12% of the coverage is usually bike.
But
10%.
10%.
Not in this motion.
I think it was 10 stalls. I mean,
It was 10
10, yeah.
stalls.
10.6 would be, I think, the technical exact number, but
We'll go
We
with
won't
10
make you
stalls.
put in the point
Okay,
six.
so that's the part of your bike is part of your motion then?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Anything else? Yes,
Can I
Cindy?
ask a question for my education? You talked about there should be 120 parking stalls, and the developer is proposing 114, and I'm thinking, when we have projects, sometimes we're comfortable with fewer and sometimes we're not. And
Right.
I'm interested in your thoughts about why you think this one's okay.
Well, in this instance, I thought, in a PDD, we have the ability to reduce the amount of parking stalls that are required, and we've done it on other projects when there's a justification from the developer that they believe that it's adequate. In this case, we're only talking about a reduction of a total of 6 stalls. And so to me, it was less than a 10% reduction, I think, in what would normally be required. And so,
Yes, it's less than 6%.
to me, it seemed reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there
because-
parking along Murphy Drive? Yes. So, I suppose we could put a condition on it that if parking along Murphy Drive becomes problematic, if they're hosting meetings or something, that we could require them to put 6 more stalls on, but
And they maybe could work something out with the bank, too,
Yeah.
for the evening.
My general theory is that if your lender is willing to lend you on a hotel with fewer stalls, that means that they're okay with it. The overlap of 6 stalls is not going to influence.
I'm not necessarily
Right.
uncomfortable. I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with it in this project.
Right.
But I'm asking the question because we talk about
What's our standard?
a lot of parking and a lot of different applications, and I just want to get some sense of why sometimes we're comfortable with it and sometimes we're not.
No, it's a question of fairness, applying the same principle for everyone, not treating anyone more fairly than the other. And the way I see the likelihood of that hotel being full, is good, but not all the time, right? So I think.
I think you also need to take in, and I think this is what you did, Abby, is the context of the site. I know that maybe, Cindy, you're thinking about what we're doing downtown as opposed to what we're doing
Yeah.
out there. And,
Right.
it's, the context of the site is very different downtown here than out there.
That's a good point. There are much easier solutions here than.
Street parking is not going to impact residential areas
Yeah.
on Murphy Drive,
Point, yeah.
Well,
if there's
and
overflow.
For the downtown project, we did significantly reduce the amount of parking that would be required by our ordinance.
And they got so many possibilities, the riverbank and, their parking lot in the evening and as well as along the roadside, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Cindy, though.
No, but that's good. It's good.
One thing we are doing, just as an update, we're working on updating the comprehensive plan right now, and next year we plan to bring forward recommended updates for the zoning code. And so that could include recommendations to change the parking specifications. So we started reviewing what other cities are doing. We've only gotten as far as looking at residential so far. And compared to other communities in Dane County for multifamily housing, we're either at a similar standard or actually lower on multifamily than every city except Madison. Madison is 1 per 1, and they don't differentiate between a 1-bedroom unit or an efficiency and a 3-bedroom unit. So I haven't looked at what the other standards are on hotels, but that's something we're planning on bringing forward too.
And I'm not a fan of huge empty parking lots, don't
Right.
get me
Right.
wrong, but I just,
Presumably, there's a hotel code in the parking generation manual, and our ordinance was based on that, but it may be updated, so.
Right.
Can I ask about these stubs and connections? Because I think that's one of the sticking points for me, is I think, so it's, as a general rule, I think we want circulation internal if we can do it, so that people at the hotel, for example, can eat at Monk's without having to get back on the street. Now, I'm less concerned about it because Murphy Drive's not that busy, and we're not really trying to do access management on Murphy Drive. But I'm trying to figure out why you're not supportive of this connection that staff recommends. I understand from staff it's somewhat important to think about the circulation on the site to be able to have connections across commercial properties, not just have every parcel you have to go in and then back out to the street and then back in.
I could address that one, because I was involved in the site layout. This site gives up so much with the ATC easement, And the,
Can you speak into the mic?
Where's the easement?
the ATC easement along University Avenue, and what we can do as far as expanding parking into that.
You can park under
We
it.
can
You just
park
can't put a
under the
building on
easement,
it.
right?
Yeah.
We're kind of, there was just a lot of factors going into the site layout, and to take those stubs, it probably cost 3 parking stalls each, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we're already under parked, per ordinance, and that's one of the things we looked at, is not having a lot of utility, I guess.
And do we have a understanding of the owner of the Tires Plus, what he or she thinks of this?
Yes, we received an email today. They do not support the connection.
So I'm relatively new. Do we generally force these connections on cross-parcel easements as a condition of a PDD, or are we basically taking it on a case-by-case basis, or do we not usually do it?
Well, the issue is we don't know if there is a private easement that's been recorded.
Maybe, let's,
Well,
Aline.
I was just wondering
Kent.
if Kent Johnson could answer that.
Yes, yes.
Because this
Okay,
used to all be owned by one property owner, and this was all shown as being connected.
Right.
And Tires Plus, as I understand, has been sold off. Is that correct, Kent? Maybe you can come up and,
Or you could take the microphone to him,
Yeah.
too. If you
Oh, yeah.
sorry.
Bring it. All right.
It was sold off. I mean, it's still owned by Tires Plus, but it's just a different owners. Really, it's been developed, or owner sold it off after he developed it. But I don't think I think when it was put there originally, it was kind of dependent on what happened next door, and it doesn't seem to fit as well as it should have with the connection. So I think it's kind of a moot point as far as they're concerned. And I don't think it needs to go through. A walkway would be kind of nice coming through probably, but a roadway, I'm not sure it helps it.
Would they grant an easement for the walkway?
Walkway? Don't know. Not sure. We might be able to do it with Tires, or with the bank, too.
That's true. I mean, we could put the connection in, and they could say, nobody's walking across here.
I don't know if that'd be true, would it?
If there's no easement across the
Parking
property,
lot.
I mean, I don't.
it is
Yeah.
technically private property.
I don't know if we have any ordinance or plans about this. I just think we might want to look at it.
Can I elaborate on
Yeah.
your original question?
Yeah, I just wanted to state that I think as a general rule, we want, when you have a cluster of parcels of similar uses, we want some internal circulation if possible. For both vehicles and pedestrians, where possible, and along similar uses, so that people don't have to keep getting in their car and driving up on the road and out.
Which I agree with, and I talked to Abby a couple days ago, and I said, if this was a similar use, I'm in agreement. I would have made an effort to try to make that connection work. If this was Monk's next door, if this was Ruth's Chris, if this was Subway, I looked at this is a different use, and I really, how do I word this? Without I don't think Tires Plus and the Holiday Inn Express. They're not, supportive of each other. I think Tires Plus is going, why do I have a bunch of cars driving through my lot? Me as the hotel owner going, the back of their lot is where they park the cars after they fix them, or they're just sitting there. So essentially it's a car shop. So I don't really see that connection of having that need. Now, I did talk to Abby, said I'm all for a pedestrian access, because I do think walking, I think you're getting in your car and you're going somewhere and you're kind of going to your next spot. I see that more as a use on it. Back to the parking side of thing, that, obviously is a factor, losing 6 stalls. We talked about it a little bit. To rehash that conversation from a hotel's perspective, they ask us typically on this type of product to be at 1.1 to 1, which would get us to 116 on 106. So we're too short of that. So us being a little bit lower, we feel like we're pretty close to that. On our other property that's exactly the same units on the east side has now been open since December, so 8-9 months. You never really use all 115. We don't have meeting space, so you don't have, at our Holiday Inn, which is full service, is meeting space, we have a much larger parking lot, and we do have a lot of cars for daily meetings. This product is a lot more kind of in and out, and you get less of those nights where you actually have 115 people there.
Okay.
So I mean,
Oh, sorry.
I'm convinced of that, but I don't want to, I mean, if staff still feels strongly about it, we should keep talking about it, but I don't want parking to kind of stall the development.
Yeah. So I just looked at it like, again, I accentuate that I just don't see it as a neighbor that's a positive for my property that I need. If you looked at this separately and it wasn't connected, and this wasn't stubbed in, I don't think you guys would get to the point that say, hey, we really got to connect these two properties. So I guess that's where I kind of end up. Like I said, if Kent Strip Mall with the restaurant uses was there, 100% agree that should be a co-joined parking lot.
But none of the other ones are connected.
So us and
Tires Plus is
the
not
only one?
connected to,
See, I thought it went through the whole way, so that's my knowledge not being there, sorry.
Well, I would say too, something that might impact this is stubbing through of the Murphy Drive sidewalk. We put the public sidewalk through, that might be a more desirable route than cutting across Tires Plus to get to Monk's, say.
Which I did tell Abby, I'm supportive of doing our part from a sidewalk, and I would like to see a pedestrian access to Costco, to Ruth's Chris, to Monk's, and to those services.
Are you done, Kurt?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
By having some pass-through or walk-through even, aren't we?
Could you move your mic closer to you, so, if you don't mind? Thank you.
I don't mind. Are we getting into issues of trespassing? It doesn't sound like, the Tires Plus owns that property, and they're not necessarily going to be happy to have people crossing their property when they're going to be liable for them. So it just seems to me like there's no compatible use here at all. And the sidewalk is the only way. And we all know that there will be plenty of people who will pass between the cars and cross the Tires Plus, but that's their business.
I would agree with that. I would also say that if they don't want people crossing their property, unless they are willing to give a cross-access easement, from my limited experience with surveying, there's no way to make them allow people, the public, to cross their property, I don't think.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, Dave.
Can I just make a point I'm going to keep making? Next time you come before us, would you please show the buildings adjacent to your site?
Yes.
It would have been a lot easier to have had this discussion
yes,
if your buildings had been on, the adjacent
On the
buildings
site
had been
plan?
on the site plan.
Yes.
Please, next time.
I second that.
Thank you.
It helps.
Yeah, let
context.
everybody know now going forward, folks, so. Yes, thank you, David. Any other questions here? So this motion is by including all these comments here now, and it's a
And
concept.
work with staff on the fence
Yes.
or landscaping, is that correct?
Yes. Okay, if there's no more discussion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed with all those various conditions. Good job, guys. Okay.
Don't sit down yet. You're next too.
Yes.
Or TIF.
So the next one is request for developer finance, tax incremental financing, District 3, Assistance, Plaza Development, Holiday Inn Express. So who's going to start? Abby?
This is a request for developer finance TIF in the amount of $645,000 to offset the extraordinary costs of soil work required to support a 4-story building. Brian Vandewall, who's our TIF planning consultant, tells us that these are some of the worst soils in the city of Middleton, right here on this site. So without TIF, this would be a 1-story building. We're convinced of that. What we would like to see is that 25% of the increment generated by this project would be returned to the TIF beginning in year 1, which would lengthen the payback to a 6-year payback. Trying to think if there's anything else. Our recommendation is to recommend approval to the Common Council.
Okay.
Make a motion to recommend approval to the Common Council with the requirement that 25% of the increment be returned to the TID in year one.
Yes. Okay, discussion. I had 3 questions and I gave it to Abby and, not Abby, Aline.
And I asked Greg, and he's prepared to address them.
Yes, let's hear about it. So those are the building slab, parking lot and drive, structural engineering special inspections, and soil engineering and observations. Why do you need that money?
What does that entail?
Yes.
All right. So, floor slab, because we're putting it on poor soil that we anticipate is a little bit unstable, we're doing geofoam underneath it to, lessen the amount of fill, but that geofoam is still going on top of poor clay soil. So we're anticipating there could be some movement underneath it. So we were advised to thicken the concrete slab by 25% and increase the reinforcing in the slab. So that's what that number represents, is the increased cost for the thickened slab and the reinforcing.
Okay, so that's, okay, all right. So it's required. You don't really have a much choice here then.
No, and it's something we are doing for insurance that we aren't going to have problems with the floor later on, because it is a slab on grade building. All of the first floor amenities are on a slab. Just trying to make sure we don't have problems with that.
Okay, so the next one is parking lot and drives. Why do you need?
Same issue with that. Just overall poor soils, and we're anticipating increasing the base course an additional 25%. So more gravel base underneath the asphalt, and then we're going to increase the actual thickness of the asphalt 33%. So instead of a standard 3-inch asphalt parking slab, we're going to have a 4-inch. And then we're also anticipating we're going to need a geomat in between the asphalt, or underneath the base course, between the clay soil and the base course. That's the added cost from a standard parking lot.
Why the parking lot? I mean, we didn't pay this to any of the other hotels for their parking lots.
No, but again, some of those were built on very good soil, or very good relative to the rest of our poor soils. The ones that are in this area are on pockets of, I don't know if it's sand or
It's clay, a very soft clay.
right,
is what
for
it
where
is.
you are, but I mean the other
Yeah.
hotels were.
Oh, right. There are, I think Kent can talk about that, but there are areas where right out in Murphy Drive, it's
Relatively
sand.
good, yeah.
But throughout this site, it's very soft clay.
And we have done something similar on sidewalks and parking lots in areas where the soil is uniformly bad, to help forestall a problem
So we have done that.
in other areas. Not with hotels, because that hasn't been an issue, but we have in other projects.
Okay, so so you need special inspections, that's why 15,000 more for?
During excavation and placement, we're going to, the soils engineer, on a typical job, they come out during excavation, check the soil, make sure that they're getting the bearing capacity that we're looking for, and they're out there one day. We're expecting them to be out there for this project, observing the placement of these helical piers and reviewing test reports on the loading, and basically keeping an eye on this every step of the way during the construction of the sub-foundation. Same thing with the structural engineer. He's going to have additional design work for the grade beams, and he's also going to have some special inspections to make sure the rebar is tied correctly. And part of his cost is the time he's going to spend doing that, the time in the engineering, but also part of it is increased liability on his part too. So he's kind of offsetting that with his increased cost. So.
Okay, so our plan is you guys will make sure that the charge only what's extra
Right,
over and
that's-
above.
Right, and
Okay.
this, I think Abby pointed out, this is developer financed, and with the 25% coming back on day one, when they start paying it back, and then with a 6-year payback, the TIF itself would have, in addition to paying back the developer financed, would have over $500,000 in revenue coming back to it over the life of the TIF. So it's
Yeah, but by my calculation, 41% of the total increment generated over the life of the TID is used to pay the project costs, and we've gone up to 100% in
Right.
other projects.
Not
So-
we are not going to do that anymore.
Well, in some areas it might be
Yes.
Might be appropriate.
warranted.
Okay.
I think from an economic development perspective, it's a good deal for the city.
It seems like yeah.
Everybody's winning.
Okay,
We don't need
any more questions? David, Dennis, Kathy, Cindy? Everybody's happy? Ready to vote? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Well, all right, you guys can, motion passes, and you guys can take a break now, so.
Thank you.
All right. So now we are on to bigger things here. So the next item is a request for rezoning from Highway Business B3 to Plan Development District, General Implementation Plan, PDD, GIP, Trista mixed use, including Middleton Market on Lisa Lane. So who's going to take it up? Okay, Robin is coming.
Haven't seen you guys in a little bit. Just a few things that I wanted to point out is, as always, we believe this is an iterative process, so I know there are certain things like parking that we intend to just have a conversation with you guys about, and we do have some alternatives on parking or adding additional parking to the site if that becomes something the Plan Commission wants us to have. The overall look and feel of the building hasn't changed since we were here before. The site plan has changed slightly because of stormwater, and stormwater is a huge challenge on that site given how shallow the water table is, so you will see changes on the site plan because of the stormwater changes. Something that appears not clear, I think, in the plans is that there is a pass-through between both buildings, pedestrian pass-through between both buildings. On the market side, the pedestrian pass-through connects to the elevator, which would take people both to the mezzanine on the market and the rooftop on the market, which will all be spaces open to market residents. On the retail side, there is a pedestrian pass-through that will actually connect that back parking lot over to the market if they're going to the retail or the market. We do have our first letter of intent signed for the retail space already. It is a health wellness spa.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very complementary medical based use. We're also talking to a dialysis center and a dentist, but those aren't as far along. So the final piece is we've actually we're in process of hiring. We hired a market consultant, and we believe we're actually going to roll the market off as an entity to be managed separately, bringing in an expert out of Portland who manages the Pine Street Market in Portland. Okay, and I'll be here for questions.
I was just at the Pine Street Market a couple months ago.
Okay.
I love the Pine Street Market.
All right, let the discussion begin, folks. So,
Can you show us on the site plan where those pedestrian pass-throughs you were just talking about, so we know what we're...
Unfortunately, my architect accidentally didn't bring the site plans, so I can show you on your plans, or
if you'd like, I could try
boy,
and if you can pull it up here, I can show you up
Might
on
just take a
top.
little while to get our.
he should know. He should be ready when he comes to the Middleton Plan Commission. So,
Sorry about that.
Eric's amazing. I don't normally throw him under the bus.
No, it's all right. I deserve it.
Eileen, these pedestrian pass-throughs, didn't the TIF consultant ask
button
those to
to
be
turn
drive-through?
I think it's close to the yellow dot, but I'm not sure.
Originally thinking to drive.
Move your finger towards the screen. Yep, right.
There it is. Yep.
well, we have to speak and
You'd think
speak.
we would have a remote.
People in the back can hear, please.
Yeah,
There was a request for it to be drive-through on the west side of the parcel. We have some engineering issues with doing that, and so that's one of the reasons we're not proposing it. One is because we need a 1-to-1 ratio of parking underneath the building, we would have had to have the road driving under the building. And then in order to have access tall enough so trucks and moving trucks and things wouldn't get stuck, we actually would have had to gone to the third level to have the trucks to be able to pass through. And so anyone on the second floor of the unit would have dead-ended in the hallway. They would have had to go up another hallway, come down another hallway. So those were the engineering challenges with putting the road in through the building, and that's why we ended up requesting putting the pedestrian paths through. Also, there's significant parking for the market side. We've really tried to divide the parking on the site, because what we're finding actually at Tresta too is if you don't have a delineated space, it tends to overflow in other areas. So the apartment people end up parking where the restaurant is or the retail is, and so we have kind of delineated parking for each of the functions on the building.
Okay.
I mean, we'll want to, I mean, this is such an actually transformative project in that area that I think really making sure the parking and circulation and pedestrian access works is very important. I do see in the public comments that someone is critiquing our consultant who suggested a pass-through road. Where are we with regards to that with staff? And as I understand it, you've we're still loading here.
Right.
You've agreed to that concept, at least in concept, and that when I'm just trying to remember the process.
So we've agreed to a road through the site. We're not opposed to that. We've been asking for it to be private only because we're concerned, two reasons. One, we're concerned about the perpendicular parking. Your consultant suggested it, and we love it. And so, but CityWorks is not real thrilled with that usage of how parking is done. And two, if we have to go fully to the full size of a city road, we again bump up against stormwater issues. If you'll see on the site, the stormwater management is over half the site is for stormwater management. So those are the two issues. We're willing to open up the road wider. We're willing to go to a public road if necessary, but those were the reasons that we were proposing it as a private. It's never meant to be so small-throated that people don't know it's public versus private. It's not meant to have a private-only drive or any of that type of use. It was really more for stormwater and parking usage.
Have we submitted this to Public Works? Oh,
That's going
that's
to
one of the part of the recommendation.
So it allows.
One of the things I'd like to see them explore is, could we reduce the cartway width of the street to keep it public? Because I hear from city council members that making it a private road is very unlikely to pass, that we need that to be a public street, and that's really part of that neighborhood connection, so making it private. But given it would probably be a 25-mile-an-hour street, right, a kind of more neighborhood street. It could be slightly
Narrower?
Yeah,
but that would be, we'd have to have Public Works input on that.
Yeah, something to think about, but that also allows in providing that parking best use of the space. I mean, you don't want to just like George would say, just have parking all around. So I think it does have both pluses and minuses, and I think let's have a good discussion. So, what is the next which somebody would like to ask now? David, you seem to be ready for it.
No, I'm just thinking that, again, as you make the point about it in your comments that you wrote, the letter that you wrote, it would be nice to see these adjacent buildings, because they're clearly very much part of your development.
Oh, the ones across the street?
Ones across the street?
Yeah. There's only one now, but yeah.
Yeah.
We had that in one of the original submissions. I apologize, we just didn't include it in another submission.
Just remember for future, when David is there, it should be there too. So.
Thank you.
Yes, Dennis.
A question, just
oh, sorry.
A quick question about this road going through. I mean, it is part of the plan. Plan still says draft on it. I don't know whether this is still draft or not. But I think if that's the city's intent, then we really should be saying it's a public road.
Yeah, there's still, I mean, the public versus private, there's still a lot of disagreement about how that should be handled, and I think that's why we kind of wanted to send it over to Public Works and get their feedback. The staff, at least, feels like it's going to function more like a connection that right now is just serving the development, because anyone who's heading west on Lisa Lane is not likely to take that L-shaped turn right now. They would just continue on to Laura Lane and take a right. So it's, at the current time, it's not likely to function to connect anything aside from what is there now. But for future long-term planning, we thought that, because we had asked Jacob Klein to reserve the right-of-way that would be needed, 66 feet, to build a public street between his buildings, we thought that this public street should align with that. One idea that's been floated is, could it be a street that would be built to public standards but could still be private? And that way the developer, if they wanted to close it off for private events, they wouldn't have to, go through the process to close a public street. We would also get the benefit of not having to plow snow or maintain it,
Yep.
which I think Public Works staff at least would be supportive of. We've also run into an issue with other private streets in the city where, as time goes on, the property owner decides that they want to turn it over to the city and have the city take over the maintenance of it. That happens a lot on condominium projects, where the condo owners individually decide that they don't want their dues to go toward paying for the maintenance of the street anymore. And then we start getting a lot of calls here at the city to say, can you make it a public street? So if we were to be looking, at that being a potential scenario in the future, maybe having it at the least built to public standards and to fit one of our normal cross sections, that might make a lot of sense.
So Abby, would it be possible to maybe put together a small document, pros and cons of private versus public?
Yep. In fact, I think I said I promised you guys that in my staff comments for the next meeting. Oh, maybe I didn't, but I meant to. Okay. I meant to say that, that was one of the things we were going to look at and work with Sean on.
Okay.
And I think we can do that before it goes to Public Works Committee too, so they'll have that.
That's great. If it was going through, then will be entirely different situation. Since it just stops there, it's not going to the Century Avenue. It's very different situation. So,
but presumably, if it's developed as a public street, as a condition of development, as like a dedication, then would we simultaneously want to exercise the easement on JT's property and build that road through? Because then, it seems to me that one consideration for Public Works is if we make it a public street, we ought to do that on JT's at the same time. If it's a private street, that gives less kind of moral requirement on the city to actually build that. Because right now there's nothing there, right?
There's nothing there, and
it's just a right of way.
It would just dead end. If we had, Jacob build the road between his properties, it would just dead end because that's where Gilson's buildings are, just south of there, and those are unlikely to redevelop. Those are going to be there for a long time.
Wasn't part of your reason for wanting a street through here to cut up that huge block?
Yeah, it's 20 acres.
Which doesn't exist on the other side, so.
It does.
Well, but it isn't.
We don't have the opportunity to.
Yeah, it isn't usable.
It's to give it that pedestrian scale neighborhood feel rather than.
Yeah, as the development density in the area increases, we wanted to see more connections for vehicles and pedestrians.
So what would be an intermediate step of? We couldn't really reserve the right of way like we do with Jacob's project, and just leave it, because that would look bad, right?
Well, and I like what your city planners proposed. Your Vanderwall came back with the plan with the perpendicular parking next to the market. I think that's a really beneficial use, considering outdoor farmers markets and winter Christmas markets. And so we like where we've ended up with the road through the facility. It's more of the width of a road and being able to do the perpendicular parking.
So if it's a public street, you'd have to get a permit if you wanted to close off those stalls to
Correct.
put like food carts or farmers markets.
And it's much wider. It is wider. It would require the building on the west side building to move slightly because it doesn't have the full 6. I think it's 60 plus the easement. It's just 60 across.
Right. Yeah. We don't have a cross section that allows perpendicular parking, and we also, I don't think, have one that allows angled parking. We do have angled parking on Elmwood Avenue, but I don't think it's one of the city's typical cross-sections, and I don't think that our staff, at least, likes angled parking. The closest comparison that I could think of in the Madison area to what is being proposed here is between the shops in Hilldale Mall. So they have the 90-degree angle parking in front of most of the shops, and then it's 2 lanes of traffic, and there's not parking on the other side.
That's a private street, right?
It is a private street.
think
and
it's private.
I think the total actual travel is just 2 12-feet travel lanes. It's 24. It's not.
Right.
It's not as wide.
And it has speed bumps, traffic control devices.
I think this is something on which this planning staff need to work on.
Well, I think that we should make our decision at the planning level. We are the we are the plan commission, and we should, if we like to have big blocks, fine, let's do the private thing and play all those games, or make it public. And I'm, from the time that I spent on public works, I'll tell you, the public cross-section is going to be what they prefer. And as Abby so clearly explained, that one won't come back to haunt you like all of these private ones will. People change their minds.
It doesn't go anywhere, though. I mean, if it was connected to something.
Well, it will. Well, do we want it to go somewhere? I mean, what do we expect? What are we thinking about in the next block? What's our long range? We don't.
Right.
You know, that's what we should be looking at.
If we don't put it in, then we've guaranteed ourselves that we never will.
Right.
Yeah, so we should at least have an easement, so.
Want that street to go to, what is it, Century or Airport? Century at that point. I would think that we would want that to happen at some point.
The issue there is the
people that own the Century lot, the one that has frontage, have said that they, and that is intended for redevelopment, they've said that they don't want it to go in and won't allow it, and, I mean, the city would have to do that, basically, so it won't go, but it will go, as Abby described, to Lisa Lane, and I think the idea that we had was that at least be open up and look like it's public, if it isn't initially, so that people feel comfortable utilizing the market and the retail, and also as a connection for the Meritor development, when it happens, that would be a pretty straight shot through that, so.
That ownership can change too, so we are just putting things in place to to enable our vision of what we see, like to see 20, 30 years from now.
Sounds to me like we have some consensus, both at staff and commission
Yes.
level, that we want a road there.
Yes.
We'll figure out later whether it's public or private. My own view is, whatever you can do to reduce the width, help slow down traffic, give it a neighborhood feel. It's that road diet concept, but
The cross
I know
sections
engineers
that
don't
the
like
city uses can be pretty narrow.
Right.
The right of way is pretty fixed.
Yeah, like
The
Middleton
cross section
Hills,
of
so
the
I
street
mean.
is not.
Yeah, so we can work on it. So I think that's one issue which Abby and others will come up with pros and cons, and she has a concern on the width, and maybe that can be handled, and so yeah, we can move forward on that. So, okay, any other questions now?
when I hate to raise parking again,
Well,
but
do it. Kurt.
what I would like to see, and I don't know how you would produce the numbers with staff, but so much of the TIF request is parking that we have that trade-off that we require a lot of parking and then we provide TIF to help pay for it. But we could, I'd like to see some numbers of kind of a win-win environmentally where we reduce the parking requirement and then we have to pay less TIF. So I know that part of it is what sort of parking does your lender need you to have, and it's different than Middleton Center, where to make the reduced parking work, we required that it not be assigned to, apartment number 23 has this stall,
Our lender is fine with the parking counts as they are. One, because there's a significant amount of on-street parking at both Lisa and Laura Lane for retail overflow, and that's where we have parking issues. So we find that it's a 1-to-1 ratio on a one-bedroom, and it's not a 2-to-1 ratio on a two-bedroom. And so that's where we propose the numbers. The other alternative that we've talked about is to show where we could put future parking if there's a problem. And we have some ideas, one being running perpendicular on the other side of the street. And the worst case scenario one is actually to take down the future medical building and park there, which I know is not a desired plan commission use of that site. Our challenge is every time we add more parking, our stormwater gets even bigger. So now we've lost green space on the site as well. So that's kind of been our trade-off. If there's an event, people are probably going to park on Lisa and Laura Lane. For the apartment usage, the parking's going to be adequate based on our historical use on other locations.
But I do agree with Kurt, if you can reduce that underground parking, let's do it.
I hear you saying you can't.
I can't reduce the underground if I have to go, I can't
Okay.
charge for it. I
Okay.
have to give it to my residents, so I need a
All right.
1-to-1 on the underground.
1-to-1 per unit.
Per unit, correct.
Okay. Yes, David?
If this does become a private road, can we have, I think you gave us the assurance that no signs will be put up saying that this is a private road?
Yeah, correct. We would actually put that in an easement for you and no
Okay,
problem.
I was going to say, I'd like that
Yeah.
in the minutes as well, because one of the big issues in Middleton Hills
Yes.
has been putting up signs that say, this is a private road, no through fare.
I have
No?
seen at other places too, yes.
I'd actually like to have it even have a street name and street sign that matches what Middleton has. It's really, for us, more width and use than wanting to keep people out.
Okay.
We are making progress. More
Well, so
questions?
is one way we could negotiate a public street, almost kind of like pre-clearing certain closures at certain times of the year, so it doesn't always have to go to ordinance committee, because you guys are busy enough not having to deal with. Okay. Yeah, to get a street closing permit.
No, but you do have a good point. I mean, that can be, part of the agreement to begin with. So then you just take care of that right away, so.
And just remind me of the circulation. Someone could come down on Lisa Lane, turn right on this possibly private, possibly public street.
We call that Robin Road. Robin Lane. It fits with the nomenclature, right?
Robin
Yeah,
Road,
yeah.
Robin Road.
And then
My husband hates that, by the
Then they
way.
would turn left and go out to Laura Lane.
Correct.
So I have a couple of things that
Yes,
need
yes,
clarified
please.
in my head.
Yes.
This private, public street, whatever it's going to be, if it would become public, would Public Works allow perpendicular parking to back out onto a public street?
No. They would possibly allow, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but they would possibly allow.
I'm sorry, whoever.
I'm sorry.
They would allow angle?
I just want to say they don't like, that's what they don't like about it, right?
They won't allow perpendicular or angled backing out onto a public street.
Well, we have angled already.
Allow angle.
I know, but I had a situation where we wanted to do angled parking down at Lakeview, and that was not allowed.
But now we do.
They don't like it.
No, we don't.
Oh, we do have an angled parking on the new
Not
parking.
backing out onto the street.
Or not back on the street,
Yeah.
yes.
And that's
yes,
exactly what you got
Yes.
going on here, and so that's what
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
If it's going to be a public street, you're not going to have that parking there. Likely.
Well,
Most
Or
likely.
you might have parallel.
Or we would have.
You might have parallel parking,
Which gives you a lot fewer stalls.
which gives you much fewer stalls. I just want to have an understanding of what we're really talking about here and what the real realm of possibilities are. The other question I have is, it looks like this private street as it's provided right now, if we went to a public street, it would have to be wider, correct? That exacerbates your stormwater issues.
Correct.
So to have it actually be a public street doesn't seem like things are stacking up too good here.
Right.
Because we got a parking issue and we got a stormwater issue.
We got to plow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than when it's sort of a lose-lose situation, so.
And we are
Yes.
completely open to however Plan Commission wants it to appear to be public. If you want to change the throating as the entrance slightly or any of that, it isn't. It's not because we don't want people in. We want people in and to feel welcome. And I have heard a couple comments about people thinking it doesn't feel welcoming enough, and that concerns me. So anything we can do to make that not be the case.
But I'm just really, just trying to talk in realistic terms here. What, instead of you guys going back and forth, it just seems like.
Yeah.
And I think
it
what
needs to be a
Robin
private
said is
street.
exactly right. That is the number one concern that is coming out of our planning team, as well as from the elected officials that I've heard. They want to make sure that it's very, very clear that it's
open to the
public,
public.
that it's not a private drive through the development. They want people to feel encouraged to
Yeah.
go through and to use the space.
Why don't
You don't have to live
refer
there
this
to use
Public
it.
Works and get their opinion on it?
Yes, that's
and
why I think
go.
we may have more discussion, so it's going to, so the,
I know what they're going to say.
all right, so yes, Kathy?
Is there a difference in who pays for it? Will the developer pay for it if it's a private road?
They would be requested to pay for it either way, right?
Either way, yeah.
Yeah,
Pay for it either way? Okay.
because as a dedication, it would be.
Okay.
Abby, I'm sorry.
They'd have to improve. They'd
Now,
have to improve it to
Abby,
can
now
answer
it's
for
your
me
chance
anytime.
to answer both the questions.
What Eileen said.
Well, they would have to pay less, though, if they make it a private street, because it wouldn't be as wide.
Right.
But we can
There
make
is a
it not
time-
as wide. I mean, that's not required. Look at in Middleton Hills, they're not as wide.
Oh, no, and that's fine. I'm fine with it being a private street with the parking on it and as narrow as it is. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking if you go public, you're not going to get the parking and you're going to have stormwater problems.
Yeah, I mean, not all,
Oh, public street does not seem really in the offing here.
okay.
There is a dimension on the plan here of what the width of the street is. Can you tell me what that is?
I don't know off the
It's
top of my
it's
head.
presumably right behind you.
It's so
but
small,
So small.
yes, and
I have my contacts in too, and I can't read it.
So this is,
We're going to try to cheat here.
Oh, good.
I'm guessing it's 24 feet.
Yeah, well, the drive lane, I think, is 212s plus the parking. I
Right.
mean, it is pretty much a,
So the street is 24 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
It's minimal, but.
yeah, 20.
I'm just guessing. It's 212.
That's
Probably.
So,
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I don't think we'd be willing to accept drive lanes of 11 feet, because that feels pretty
I
crowded.
think
No.
it appears
Doesn't
that
have to be
it's
14.
32. So it's
all
like,
right.
I'm
Right.
not having any luck with technology tonight. I'm apologizing right now for this. This is-
So 32, that's,
No, just that. No, that's just the carriageway width. That can't be 32.
Yeah.
Not the parking.
We want to know
because
the,
I know that the drive lanes in the parking lot are 24, and it is bigger than those.
Those are probably 18, right?
So
These are 18, right?
Correct.
yeah. So and what's that dimension there, Abby?
I think
That could be
it's
32.
blurry because it looks like it was scanned in, but I think it looks like it could be 32.
I agree.
But it can't be 32.
That'd be nice.
But that's, I think it's 32 to the
The
end
stalls
of
are
the,
18.
of the tree island.
To the island, correct.
So it's not 32 for the.
To the drive.
For the parking spaces, it's a little less than that, a couple feet less.
Fair. That's fair.
okay, so you will get all those figures for us the next time, so.
Absolutely.
Yes, okay. Any more questions, folks? Yes, David, you are ready to ask your next question.
and where are we on the discussions we had on TIF last time? I think the request is about the same as last time?
Well,
There
It's
were-
already
there were-
gone through to, there's no change in what we're asking or
Okay.
on this
So we took
meeting.
out the purple piping? Sorry.
And replaced it with
Replaced
the, well, no.
No, we took out the living roof.
Yeah,
The
the
purple
purple
pipe
pipe
is
is in.
actually an essential key to the stormwater management on this
Okay.
site.
And they added something.
They added solar.
Solar
yeah.
panels.
Solar, yeah, PV.
Okay.
It was, the TIF was conceptually approved at the city council meeting
Right.
last week.
Okay, so we are mainly supposed to provide you input, and then we are supposed to recommend it to various commissions, right? That's what we are doing today?
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we refer it to all appropriate commissions, whichever those are.
Okay,
Help me out.
you want to?
Water
well,
resources.
Water resources.
Staff or Commission, depending on which is required at this level, and then Public Works Committee if you want guidance on
Sure.
the street.
Yes.
And then our staff recommendation is that we start the DBMT process, which is the process that we recently did with Middleton Center Phase 1 and also Phase 2, where we look at the site design materials, architecture, and make a recommendation back to Plan Commission. And we also want to begin work on the TIA. We have the scope of work now, and I believe that our consultant's been in touch with you guys to get that started.
Correct.
And the landscape.
The landscape plan, yeah.
Anything else you guys want to add to it? And pros and cons of public versus private, but that's just a little.
Can I ask if there's any architectural feedback from the Plan Commission for what we're showing? Maybe especially David?
Yeah.
Yes, David, you have
I've
a
been here
chance
enough now to, but I just want to feel like if we're going in the right direction for the Plan Commission.
I think that is important to provide that input.
You know what I think about buildings just going flat roofs.
I feel the same way, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we see across the way from you. It's what we have had proposed for Stagecoach. It's what we've got at Plymouth, at Parmenter Circle. You know, how much more of this sort of raw architecture can we have?
Do you feel that that's the way ours is representing currently?
I think it's just more of the same, yes.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, do we have some other who wants to? Yes, Kurt, you want to provide some input on this?
I look more at the numbers than the
I'll second
architecture.
his motion, though.
Okay,
Anybody
okay,
second?
all right.
Oh, you're right.
But after the numbers are used,
Yes.
it's the architecture we look at.
So the motion is made and seconded. Let's the more discussion begin now. Okay, any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed. You can go out and enjoy now. So, all right. Until
Well,
next
I'm
meeting.
glad to
so.
hear you have a letter of intent on the retail, because someone is telling us that it's impossible to get retail tenants in Middleton.
Okay, now we move on to the bigger things here.
That was a subtle slam. There you go.
Well, we are now on to historic Pheasant Branch Crossing concept plan. All right, Eileen, or who is going to take it
Well,
on?
Abby had the staff
Abby,
comments. and-
yes.
Do you want to first, did we have any,
Oh, yeah, good point.
was that on the design guidelines or the concept plan? I can't remember. if
We
they
had
were all for the
three
design.
comments that were received, and one of them was really on the concept plan, and that was from Tad Dockery, and you have that at your site. And then we have two on the next item, which is the design guidelines from Alan and Kathy Muirhead, and from Rick Soto. So we have
Yes.
one on the concept plan. I think it's more related to that.
And Kathy has a note here, I agree with many of the draft guidelines, but not sure those indicated in our letter to the Plan Commission. And then there's another one, Alan wished to speak, but this is not a public hearing, and in support of concept but request modification. Send the letter and we will work on it. And then there's a Tad Dockery, and I communicated with him, and it's not a public hearing, but I did get your input, and I will share that with the staff, and I think I already have.
They have it, yeah, we received
So,
an email.
and there's a Cheryl here, and Cheryl, I know you like to speak, but it would be best if you send your comments to me and to the staff, because
Because my cell phone has 10% battery, and I don't know if I'd be able to bring up my notes anyway.
all right, the way to go, win-win here, folks, so, okay, so now, Abby.
Yeah, so, we've discussed the same version of this concept at a previous meeting. We also took this to the Landmarks Commission to talk about the concept. They met on August 22nd. There were some really good comments provided at the Landmarks Commission meeting by both the commission members as well as attendees. One of the things that was really helpful is one commission member, Kathy, brought some photographs of examples of buildings that might fit within this type of historic district, and those were very well received. We had planned on holding another Landmarks Commission the following week, but we didn't have the design guidelines ready to go and be distributed at that point in time. So the current plan is for the Landmarks Commission to meet on their normal meeting date in September. But our staff feels that the concept plan is, it's ready for a recommendation for approval. We would appreciate any feedback on any modifications that the Plan Commission would like to see to the language, in particular based on any of the public comments that we received for this meeting. But, our recommendation for the concept plan is for approval to the Common Council with just a modification to enhance the language around the importance of native plantings and removal of invasive species. We heard that from a couple of commenters. The next item on the agenda are the more specific draft design guidelines that have been developed, and we're not recommending approval of those tonight, but the concept plan itself, our recommendation is for approval.
So in this one, I like to include the Catherine Jones. She also emailed on 9/6, and there's a Facebook comment from Heidi Rogers Helverson, and those comments are also part of the record here. So then do I have a motion for what Abby has described?
I would make a motion to approve and recommend approval to the Common Council of the, wait, I gotta look at it.
Concept plan.
On Historic Pheasant Branch Crossing Concept Plan.
With all other comments included?
With the modification that's suggested by staff in our notes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, now the discussion. Leaf, you got some questions here.
Do we still have the story, how many stories something can be limitation in here, or did we change that to?
No, this is.
That's in the second item, the design guidelines.
In the second.
I'm ahead of myself.
This is that's the next item, this is the concept. So any questions about concept?
I just want to
Yes.
clarify that this is kind of like a neighborhood concept plan.
Right.
It is not we should be careful not to call it a historic district plan, because it doesn't sound like we are going to pursue, under either state or federal requirements, a historic district. We don't have enough assemblage of buildings and National Register properties, but.
So there are only 5 buildings, right?
That came up, that topic exactly came up at the Landmarks Commission meeting. And previously, the Landmarks Commission had hired a consultant to do that type of work in the downtown to see if there were enough buildings in downtown Middleton that would meet the criteria to determine eligibility for a National Historic District. And this consultant, his name is Timothy Hegland, and he does a lot of work in the area, and he came through and he assessed the buildings, and he said, there aren't enough buildings here. There's not enough of a density of historic structures in the downtown where you would qualify. So it's unlikely that you would qualify. However, he did recommend that the homes on Hubbard Avenue and Elmwood Avenue would qualify because there were 61 homes of 4 particular styles of architecture. And so the Landmarks Commission did go through and they designated what is called the East End Historic District in Middleton. Many people don't know that it's there because we have never put a sign up. It's been designated on the state and national register for, I think, about 10 years. Now, in that historic district, the city has no oversight on what happens to those 61 homes within the district. It's just, it's designated on the state and the national registry, but the Landmarks Commission has never been involved with reviewing modifications to homes within that district. So what we're looking at here with the design guidelines would be something that would be enforced through design review for properties that require design review. similar to the way that our Parmenter corridor neighborhood guidelines are enforced, and that is, they're not strict requirements, but when a project comes forward in the Parmenter corridor, within that area, we review that project by those standards and make recommendations based on that.
Good. Yes, David?
I agree with what Kurt's saying, and I think I raised it with you before, Abby. Can't we just drop the word district? It's a historic Pheasant Branch crossing.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation, yeah.
Then sticking with this document, this is the only place that we see the trailhead building on it. Looking ahead at the design guidelines say buildings should be placed within 20 to 30 feet of the street edge.
Right.
I would like to see that head building pulled up to the street.
Okay.
So that the parking is behind it, not sort of the frontispiece to it, especially as there isn't any walkway straight to the building. Right? And then the crazy idea that I've thrown out to several people, let us move the blacksmith building to be the trailhead.
To move?
We talked about that,
Pick it up and move it across the street.
Okay.
Yes?
Well,
we've actually, that idea has gotten some legs, or some traction. We talked about that at the Landmarks Commission, and there was some interest from the members in researching that. A gentleman who's in the audience tonight, Jim O'Brien, is a former city council member, and I know that he had some history on that building and recalled that actually moving that structure had been proposed at some point previously, possibly when you were on the city council. And
so do we want him to give a chance to say something? Yes. No, you can come to the mic, so since you are a part of the discussion. So.
And while he's making his way to the microphone, we did also talk to the owner of the building about that being a possibility, and it seemed like there might be some interest there.
Okay. Right, this is a very brief story I have to tell. Right around the turn of the century, I think, when PDQ expanded from its smaller building to the building we know now, since they owned the land that the blacksmith shop was on and they intended to expand into that area, they were of the mind to do something with the blacksmith shop. And I picked up rumors to that effect and talked with Dan Ramsey, who was mayor at the time, and said, well, perhaps it's a good idea to go and talk to PDQ about this. And Dan agreed, and we went out to the PDQ office, and Dan sat down with the manager and said, well, we sort of like that blacksmith shop building. Is there any way that you can modify your plans to keep that building where it is? And that, in fact, turned out to be the case. PDQ did modify its plans. They expanded, but kept the blacksmith shop where it is. Now, one of the things that the manager happened to say at the time was that they were thinking not of destroying the building. I'm not sure whether they could or couldn't, given whatever might govern what you can do in that respect. But he did say that we have given some thought to moving the blacksmith shop, he said, across the street, across Century Avenue. And that's all he said. And when we talked a little bit about whether or not you could move a building like that, and I said, well, the manager said that they were thinking about doing that. Whether or not they had actually looked into the logistics of doing it, we don't know. Since he said, we'll try to modify our plan to leave the building where it is, and that's what happened. That's all I know about that little episode.
Thank you.
So since it will be owned by Quick Trip now, so we better work on it. So, well, thank you, Jim, for doing that. So. Yes, Elizabeth.
Hi, Richard was actually at our ordinance meeting earlier tonight, and I talked.
You want to come to the mic?
Elizabeth Hedrick, District 4, City Council. Quick Trip was at our license and ordinance meeting tonight, and we, specifically I, because it's in my district, asked him what would be happening to the blacksmith shop. They had no idea that they might be owning it, so they will be getting back to us, and when I have that information, I will pass it on.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Is it on the National Register?
No, it's just a locally designated landmark. And the gentleman that we spoke to about it with Quick Trip is in their real estate office, and I think he was quite surprised when Eileen and I told him about the blacksmith shop as well. But they're
That you
open
got
to
historic
It's
stuff
locally
there, so-
designated. Do we have it at least protected within a requirement that it couldn't be demolished without some sort of planning or permitting process?
Right, yeah, our landmarks process, our landmarks ordinance is very similar to other communities, and it basically says that, you know, any modification to the site or structure requires Landmarks Commission approval. If there is an application to demolish a landmark building, and I don't know, at least since I've been here, there never has been an application to demo a landmarks building. But if there were, they would have to come to the Landmarks Commission, which makes a recommendation to the Plan Commission. There's a period of 6 months of time where no building permit will be issued, and it's a period of time that the Landmarks Commission can work with the applicant to come up with a mutually agreeable solution.
Okay, are we ready just to vote on the concept?
And just one clarification,
Yes.
one more. Approving the concept plan does not commit the city either to approve or not to approve the trailhead and/or stagecoach.
Absolutely.
So we're clear.
It does not.
Oh, I guess I wanted to make one more comment,
Yes,
and
I
that is, you know, when we sent this concept plan out, we mailed this to the owners that we have available through our Dane County notification system, the owners of property, and we, for like a rezoning, we're required to notify property owners within 200 feet of a property, and we went well beyond that for this historic plan. We also put information out on our city Facebook page, as well as the main page of our city website, and on Notify Me. We received a public comment from a tenant that lives within an apartment complex, and we don't have a good way of notifying tenants within buildings. We notify the owner, and our hope is that the owner of the building then will post the notice in the lobby so that tenants within an apartment building are notified of projects that are happening, and that clearly does not always happen. We've struggled with this for years. Many of the apartment complexes are locked, so we actually, as staff, don't even have access to get in and do a posting ourselves. But I will say that for this concept plan, we really, as far as public notification goes, we went well above and beyond what's normally required. I think it was the first time we posted a concept plan on our city Facebook page, so we're trying to come up with creative ways to get the word out about projects, and if you guys have any suggestions about how we can do that better in the future, we're open to that.
And
Did you mean that
you want to come on the microphone?
I don't, because I have loud enough.
Oh, okay.
It's mostly so it's recorded for the...
Did you mean that you sent out a notice of this concept in my mailbox?
Cheryl, I can look and see if you are on the listing.
Okay, because I, to the best of my knowledge, have not received anything. The only way that I learned about this a little bit was something in the Middleton Review.
Good job, George.
I have the,
That's kind of a sketchy...
that's where everybody learns about everything.
So everybody learns everything.
Come on.
The Times Tribune.
And the Times Tribune as well. We love
Okay.
them all.
So Abby's looking that up. Cheryl, there's also, and just for anybody else in the audience, there's also Notify Me, which Abby mentioned
And I
in
belong
your
to
blog.
that,
That's good.
But I just changed my phone number, so I
Okay.
gotta get
Okay.
back up.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't know if you're on this listing, but this is what we mailed out on August 10th, and we use this software that we have available through the county to provide public notification, and where we cross off items, that's where we have a duplication. Unfortunately, the software doesn't allow us to do that. But I was gonna look and see, sometimes we also include a map area in here, and I think I had that in the staff comments last time. So we could actually see if the map covers your property, but like I said, we
try.
Well,
The good news is you found out about it, as did the tenant in the apartment building, so obviously
Cheryl,
our
we are
efforts
happy
did
you're
work.
here, so And Ted, if you have some suggestions, how we could inform the others, please send it to us. We will try to do the best we can, so.
Is this what we're approving?
Yes.
Document?
Yes.
Can I just express concern still then about the Stagecoach building appearing so prominently on the back page?
So
I don't mind it so much on the inside page where it talks about residential projects, and this is a possibility.
So would you like the approval after removing it then?
Sorry?
Would you like the approval after
I would
removing
like
this?
that removed.
Okay.
If it was me.
Is that okay with everyone else?
No.
It's a concept, that's all.
It's just David, it's just a
Possibility.
concept, so.
There's going to be something there.
And it feels like we would be saying, we're trying to cover up the fact that, well, yeah, there is a development proposal right now. So it says proposed. Potential proposed.
Okay.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote then?
Yes.
Are we ready to vote? So I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Now we are on to a bigger thing here now. So the next one is actually, David, which will get you excited. This is the draft design guidelines for historic Pheasant Branch Crossing concept plan. Who is going to take it?
I don't have anything to add beyond what I included in our staff comments. Our recommendation tonight is for these design guidelines to be referred to Landmarks Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Would there be any use in submitting this to Water Resources or Public Works, as it impinges on that, or probably not?
Water sources already did
I mean, because
look at it.
they've already looked at it, okay.
No, I don't, no, I guess maybe.
Because it
a
has
good
some,
idea.
it has some guidelines for stormwater management, BMPs and the like.
I think probably a good idea, good thinking.
I'd like to get,
Yes.
because I actually want to make a comment on the stormwater BMPs.
Okay, so
I'll
the,
accept it as a friendly amendment.
okay, who else would you want to send it to? Just those two?
Landmarks and Water Resources, yeah.
Landmark and water sources.
I'll second the motion if we didn't already do that.
Somebody did.
Did.
Okay, so do you guys want to add any other committees? Dennis?
No.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Yes, Susan?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, wow, so appropriate. CLC, folks.
Yes, of course.
And PRFC, or if you are happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it probably have some parks and all those things. Leaf, are you happy, or you want?
Oh, I am happy.
Okay.
You don't know how happy I am.
Okay, so we are referring to just those city commissions, so. Now, David, you are ready for some questions, I can tell.
Yeah. What area do the guidelines apply to?
Just the boundary that's on page, where'd I put them? Got too many papers over here.
It's not a square, it's,
Just-
Well, we need page numbers on.
No, but they're really light.
Where it says
They are
project area and history, like
Oh, you're
page.
right, they are, right? in that-
Yeah, so,
I apologize.
They're hard to see.
So we went over this a lot. On page 2, the map that's on the left shows the black outline of the area that we would recommend that this would apply to. It loosely follows the original plat map of Pheasant Branch, but I would point out that we did include some additional structures that were not within the original plat boundaries. One is the Falter-Sachs home, which is the one with the peach trees, the gentleman who brought the peaches to the last meeting. That home was, it was moved. It's the red house on Century Avenue, and it's got some historic character, and I know he was very interested in the historic Pheasant Branch concept plan. So we recommended adding that property. And then the other home is on Branch Street. It's actually Jim O'Brien's home. I think it's over 100 years old. So we looked that up on our assessor's website, and it's, you know, it's not a locally designated landmark structure, but it's got quite a bit of historical interest and character. So we would recommend adding that. And then we removed property that is now the Middleton Glen apartments. I'm sorry, are they condos? They're senior housing?
Senior.
Yeah. So we took that out, and I believe otherwise we stuck with the original Pheasant Branch plat from 1890.
So it includes the Klein development.
Yes, yes.
So what do we do with page
Creek Road is really Dane Street.
8, which talks about elevations?
Well, that would be your purview to decide whether this should apply for the Stagecoach development. But I know, at least at the Landmarks Commission, there's a significant amount of interest in having these guidelines apply to redevelopments, you know, within the district. And I think that based on the public input that we've received, there's a lot of interest in seeing if Mr. Klein would come back with a new architectural plan that would show a building that would more fit within the criteria.
I mean, it seems sad if the first building that happens after the guidelines are approved breaks all the guidelines.
Well, and if you look at that map on page 2, this is not a large area that we're talking about. And so, you know, there are not that many opportunities for redevelopment that these design guidelines would apply to.
Right.
And so if we want to create a cohesive district, which is the goal of this plan, I think that that's going to be a key site.
More questions, David?
No, I think the guidelines are very good.
Yeah, actually,
Recommend my colleague.
yeah, I do have some, you know, I guess I did highlight some of those things, but I'm going to talk to this staff. So, any other, Dennis, you have something inkling on your mind?
I think they're very good too. They're very
Kathy?
clear. And
Cindy?
I think they're very good too.
Yeah.
All right.
I just
Yes, go
have
ahead.
one comment, is that,
Yes.
I mean, I agree that they're good. I would like to see on page 19 us push language that says, we're talking about stormwater BMPs, bioswales, rain gardens, parking lot islands, stormwater planters. I'd like to see language say should be required rather than are encouraged.
Good.
But maybe Water Resources could tell us on that, because I think, I mean, particularly in and near the Conservancy, you want, you know,
Yeah,
let
not-
the word go out, that's something we'd probably be willing to use TIF
Sure.
to have really good bioswales and
I think Abby had some
Permeable.
language, well, maybe that was for the council, about the modification to enhance the language around the importance of native plantings.
Yes.
And removal of invasive species. I think Alder West brought that up.
I think Alder West wants us to plant lots of buckthorn, right?
She loves buckthorn. Is that
She
what
loves
it
it.
occurred?
And some box elders and some cottonwood trees.
Okay, any other relevant input, folks? Well, so this is, I mean, we are just referring this to those 3 commissions, and that's all what we are doing here right now. So I think there will be when it comes back, we will have more discussion. And okay, David, you got any more questions? Anyone else has questions now? If there are no more questions, Kurt, I'm going to call the question. Mark, you have any questions? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. Yes, now you can, guys can converse, so. Okay, so the next one is the concept review for addition, Kramer Development LLC, 1345 Deming Way, Abby.
Well, Jeff
Or
Kramer is
yes.
here as well.
All right, the way to go. All right, Jeff.
Love this site plan better.
Anybody over there like a little treat?
Mark has cookies here, folks.
Little snack.
So this is,
I mean, more of a treat than sign reviews,
yeah, right.
parking widths.
Kathy or Cindy?
No, thanks.
So, just a little bit of background about this project. Again, this is just concept review at this stage. We had a really good meeting with Jeff Kramer. Actually, we've had 2 meetings with Jeff Kramer about this project, which has kind of come forward quickly, and there's an interest in getting this project moving quickly so that it will be able to accommodate the tenant, which is a single tenant. They're currently located in Dane County. The tenant name, I believe, is still confidential. The tenant approached Jeff after looking at a couple of dozen other properties in the area because the space that they're in currently is not functioning well for them, and there's not an opportunity for them to remodel their space. They employ over 100 people. They have really good, high-paying jobs. It's exactly the type of company that we want to have in Middleton. And one of the really exciting things about it is we just did the urban greenway plan, and we looked at how the urban greenway attracts job growth in Middleton and how it relates to economic development. And this company in particular wanted to be located in this location because of the proximity to the greenway. That was very important to them. So, you know, they didn't know about the urban greenway plan at the time, but it was like when we met with them, every item, we were just like, check, check, check. This is exactly the type, you know, the type of company that we want to see in Middleton, and the interest that we're seeing from other companies because of the urban greenway. So this is a request to add 8,800 square feet on the former Globe University building, which has been vacant for about a year now. That building requires a significant amount of modification, and the reason is because it has laboratory space primarily on the first floor, and it's highly specialized for veterinary students who went through the Globe University program. Jeff and Alder West got to have a little fun geeking out with each other, talking about all the high-tech specifications that were in that building because of the veterinary use. So the building is about 31,000 square feet. They want to add 8,800 square feet, so the total building would be over 40,000 square feet. And it would include 150 parking stalls, which is adequate for the tenant. And the applicant plans to bring back the plans to the next meeting and then also announce the tenant at that time.
So I'll move concept approval.
Second.
All right, discussion. Yes, Dennis.
Well, this is a wonderful project. I'm glad to see Globe University being used, but I have one question, and this is something I bring up occasionally. Unfortunately, the main entrance has been moved from Deming Way to nowhere, to a side lot. And I think it just behooves us, whenever possible, to have an entryway. I'm wondering, I mean, there is one there now. I'm wondering if somehow, particularly since you're doing so much remodeling, it'd be possible to fabricate that.
Where's the existing entrance?
We're actually not changing. We're not changing any of the entrances actually. Deming Way. This is the current entrance off of Deming, and then Holiday Avenue has an entrance as well.
Yeah.
We're planning on keeping both of these. This would be the front door still on Deming Way.
So there is a front door on the Deming.
Okay. Point to that again. Front door.
This is the main entrance.
The front door in the building.
The front door is currently right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just not.
And that's where the lobby.
Yeah. So.
And you would put it where?
We're going to keep everything as it's laid out.
Okay.
This addition may have a staff entrance. It won't be the focal point of the entrance.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other questions, folks?
I was delighted to read this, because we got that empty building sitting there.
Yes, yes, me too. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the concept plan is approved. So the next one is now the TIF part.
Yeah, so this is also concept approval at this point in time. It's a request for developer finance TIF assistance in the amount of $700,000. Initially, the developer finance TIF request was higher. This is representing what we think is about the full increment that's going to be generated from this project. The extraordinary costs are related to demolition, design and construction premiums, utility relocations, fill for the addition, storm sewer, solar PV project, and also an economic incentive, which we've done in other TIF projects before. And it's spelled out specifically in our TID 3 plan amendment number 9, which I provided a link to in the staff comments.
Okay, so this is the concept review for tax incremental district 3 assistance for Kramer Development LLC. So do we have a
Recommend concept approval for TIF 3.
Second.
Okay. Abby, you want to add more to it? So
No, I think that's pretty much it. Just that, it's a great company. We got to see a presentation about some of the things that they do for their employees, and we were completely impressed with the work ethic, or the company ethic, as well as the average salary, which is very high. It's over 100 employees, and we want to keep them in Dane County if we can.
And the only thing which I didn't like and still don't like, this level of TIF funding would represent 100% of the increment. And I have told staff that we are going to make every effort not to do it. But this is the only thing which concerns me.
Right.
But
and these are extraordinary cases where we have the opportunity. I mean, TIF as an economic development incentive, this is the kind of project you want to use.
I'm going to bend a little bit in some situations, but I don't want it to make it as a practice.
Well, and when we say developer finance, I don't see an interest. Is there an interest charge on this? Is that what? No. So that we're in some ways getting a developer finance TIF with a 0% financing charge.
Oh, yes.
Which is
okay. This one does not include the interest, so that's helpful.
There might be, when we come back, when this is kind of fully baked, we would reduce the economic incentive piece. We can really only support about 700,000. So we're trying to
increment.
Yeah, we're trying to maximize that.
And so the economic incentive, that's for bringing jobs, right?
Correct.
And I assume we have some clawback provision if the jobs are not provided and the like.
Yeah, so we have a couple of agreements that are in place currently, and we have a date, and I think it's in early February, where each year the company is required to submit verification that they're maintaining the employment level, and if they don't, then there is a clawback, and it's based on, I think, the average salary. It's like a percentage of that. I can't remember. Our city attorney works it out for us, but there is.
I just want to repeat a concern we had a few months ago, which is we really want to avoid, to any extent possible, the perception that we're using TIF to lure existing businesses away from other municipalities in Dane County, right? It's that idea of regional partnership. But, I'm convinced from what I've heard that, just like we did a few months ago with Navitas, right? There's no space for them to remodel or add and keep the jobs in the region where they're currently housed. So, so we're not being a bad neighbor to Madison. They just have no space in their existing building.
Right, and this company I know was working with a broker, and they had looked at, didn't you say over 24 other properties that their space is not functioning. It's actually similarly sized, but there's not a way for them to feasibly remodel it. And that's a lot of the same discussion that we had, because we were very concerned about that too. And this does have the potential to be, a high profile transaction because of the company. But
have we talked to MadRap about this and make sure that that's all smoothed over?
I have not.
But we are good neighbor city, will remain good neighbor city. We are not going to be poaching businesses from anywhere. So it is just,
Yeah.
when this is the best choice, then this is the best choice, so.
They sought us out because of the building. Property. And their business is, the majority is office space, so about 30,000 is office space. Then the other portion, it isn't pure office. There's a design center, there's other things going on there, so they can't just go into an existing office building and take 40,000 square feet. It wouldn't work. It has to be a separate building. Just so we're all on the same page too, I don't mean to be vague on this, but we don't have a deal yet. We're still negotiating that. We're hoping by the end of the week we'll know if this is going to work out for both parties. So I hate coming to these meetings without being able to disclose more information, but because of the timeline, we would need to move them in end of March, end of April, somewhere in there. So we've got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. In order to meet those schedules, I wanted to come and introduce the concept tonight, possibly next Tuesday, and then get back on the agenda for formal review. So we're trying to work within a schedule and maintain a budget and a good option for this tenant because, like Abby said, and Eileen was there, Mark was there, Council President West was there, and the mayor. This could be a great company for Middleton. We're all excited about it, so we're trying to figure out how to bring them here.
Well, hopefully this is rolling in the right direction.
Right.
Yes.
And just to assuage the mayor's concern, this is TID 3, which has
Yep. Okay, so.
adequate cash flow right now. So.
Any more discussion? Otherwise, I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed. Okay.
Thank you.
Jeff. So
Thank you.
you can, we'll see you soon. So, all right. So the next is the specific implementation plan modification for conservancy view subdivision for increased building height on 6747 Chickahawk Trail. It is.
I wrote the staff comments for this one.
Yes.
The developers, the builders, Pat Terry, he is here and available to answer any questions you may have. This is before you tonight because the house exceeds the 28-foot maximum or 2.5-story maximum that was stipulated when the Plan Commission approved the SIP for Conservancy View back in April of 2013. So since then, there's been at least 2 SIP modifications for building height approved by the Commission, most recently July of last year. And that was based on the rationale that the building was designed to step up the hillside to help blend into the existing grade, thereby reducing the apparent height of the building from the front lot line. In that instance, the height was actually 33 feet when measured at the front of the structure. This actually has a similar stepped back effect. And furthermore, the rear elevation does not face, as I understand it, from when I looked at the map, it's on the park side of of Middleton Hills. It's not adjoining the residences. So we are I'm recommending approval of the building plan as a minor SIP modification.
I'll move approval as building plan as a minor SIP modification.
Second.
All right. The discussion. So there are no unhappy neighbors, right?
We didn't notify immediate neighbors, but I don't know if
How about
the
you?
lot's vacant.
You have any input? The neighbors are happy? It's not going to.
There are no neighbors to the rear.
Right.
The park abuts the rear property line.
Yeah.
I did kind of survey.
Can you come to the mic?
Sure thing.
Identify yourself and then your comments.
Patrick Terry, owner of Terry House Design Build, and the general contractor who is building 6747 South Chickahawk Trail.
Okay, thank you.
There is no rear neighbor to the property line. It's the Middleton Hills Park. The only properties that could possibly have a blocked view are on the opposite side of the park. And currently, the majority of the building height difference, if the house was measured from the front door to the midpoint of the highest peak, we're just shy of 30 feet. Unfortunately, the copies didn't exhibit it well. Most of the additional feet is bringing the garage down, so the driveway is usable for the owner's boat to be backed in easily, and it also really fits nicely in and sort of nestled into the hillside. The largest challenge with the property, from this corner point to the rear, the basic building envelope, we're dealing with 22 feet of height difference from the street up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I've also built 22 properties in the Ridges of Pheasant Branch and Conservancy View neighborhood. So I'm very sensitive to the Middleton Hills neighbors, as well as trying to incorporate the architecture into the hillside with being such a difficult site to maneuver.
Okay. Susan, you have a question?
How high is this going to extend? If you were in the park, would you be able to see it?
Are you familiar with the neighborhood?
Yes.
Little bit.
He lives there.
I apologize.
May have gone around there.
The 6719 is the roof that's very obtrusive to the skyline of the park. It was built approximately 3 years ago. We will be approximately 4.5 to 5 feet lower than that roof line when we're done. I actually did the site work today just to make sure. We're about 4 feet 5 inches lower than that roof. With also the hipped prairie style, it will be a much lower profile.
So neighborhood will be happy. All right.
We like good neighbors.
Yes. Okay, any more discussion, folks? Okay, if there's no discussion, I call the question. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Well,
Thank you.
wonderful, have a good time. So the next one is design review for signage for Fitzgerald's 5-star barbecue. Wow, we have barbecue coming. So 3112 Parmenter Street. Mark?
I don't think anybody's here for this item.
Oh,
There you are. Oh, I'm
well,
sorry.
there
I
he
didn't see-
is.
Where were you sitting?
Oh, I was in the back.
All right, good, you're here.
All right.
Are you from JGS?
Yep.
Okay, good. This is here before you tonight because there are design changes to the building. As you know, Fitzgerald's closed a few months ago, and as I understand it, 5-Star Barbecue is moving in, although they're keeping the Fitzgerald's name in part, for part of the building at least. And they are making some minor design alterations. I think they're just replacing the canvas. Otherwise, you're leaving the building largely intact, as I understand it, although they are wanting to add some signs, wall signs, which, as you see in my staff comments, I raised some concerns about.
So if you want to move the podium a little bit away from the light, and then you can explain it, whatever you have there, so that's good, that's great, so.
All right, yeah, basically, these are signs. I think that we have abandoned this, though. I don't know if they're being approved, but there's other things to consider because they're not UL listed signs. So the building inspector.
Can you grab the mic and talk into it,
Okay,
because it's hard to...
So the building inspector had problems with those anyway, and I don't think they're going to go through the extra cost to get them listed. So I think that the signs are coming down regardless, so that's kind of a moot point. But they would like to, they are keeping Fitzgerald's in the front of the restaurant. So the sign out, is that the only ones you have? Do you have one? You
You didn't give me any, so I took a couple, and that's all I...
Oh, you didn't get that one? Because I did have that.
So what are
Too
we
late to
proving
No,
here?
you can...
email it over. Somebody can get it up there? Or?
Do you have a thumb?
Do you have it on a flash drive?
No, I just.
You can email it.
Okay. Real quickly, but essentially the sign out front, the Fitzgerald sign, which is right here. So
Hold it up and walk with it.
Yeah, you could just
walk around.
It's a big enough
so
iPad.
basically, all they want to do is this: the little sign right here underneath it. They want to put.
Go
Star
ahead.
Barbecue.
Yep. Okay.
There's a spot right there. For
5-Star Barbecue and
Okay.
karaoke.
Oh, must have emailed
Looks
it.
fine, so.
That looks a lot better than
And I saved
this.
the big one
Yeah.
for last.
Oh,
That and then the awnings that were already there, the awning frames, right here, are just going to be, they're going to have the same logo on it. Obviously, the size that needs to be for the regulations of the awning. I think it's a third or whatever that ends up being. But those are the only two alterations to the exterior.
So no sign on the building.
No
Let me
sign.
understand what you're saying. The 5-star, 2 stars that are on their building right now are going to disappear.
Correct.
The other sign that is there on the ground right now, lying on the ground,
Gone.
has gone. Right?
Yep.
You're replacing it with
Nothing.
There's nothing, just.
Nothing on the building.
Something on the existing
Sign,
sign.
which is this right here.
Okay.
Fitzgerald's will stay, and this little white sign down here will become a sign for the Five-Star Korean Barbecue and Karaoke in the back.
So,
And
so no building sign.
And you won't put anything on the end of the canopy?
Yes, we will put on the end of the canopy the same logo right here to conform to, the code. So it can be, less than a third, but it'll be the same color as the sign in front, which you guys don't have up here, so.
Sorry, it's on this drawing, right?
It's not on any of
Canopy?
these drawings. He said he didn't receive, I could email somebody quick so we could blow it up if you guys want to look at it, but it would be essentially this logo would be the same thing that would go on to.
But you're talking about putting it on the end of this canopy?
Exactly.
Okay.
In very small
Yeah,
form,
okay.
obviously, just to.
So the only real change is on that front sign along Parmenter.
Yep.
What about the canopy on the side now that has the Five-Star sign on?
That's
There's
coming
one-
out.
There's two, there's one in the front and one in here.
Right.
They will both be the same.
That'll have that white sign on too?
There will be no signs on the building, just on the
No, that,
canopy itself.
on the awning though, on the canopy.
On the awning, there was awnings originally, and there'll be
Right.
another new awning, because they were shredded, that will have the Star Barbecue logo on it,
Right, okay, on both of those?
on both of those. yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm
You've
just,
spoilt my evening. This was going to be the first vote no.
well, I was going to point out that the sign that is shown on the picture says 5-star, but there's only 2 stars. Which,
I pointed it out to him too, so I think that's another good reason.
can I just
for
ask a
not-
question since I'm confused? So this will not be Fitzgerald's?
This will still be Fitzgerald's, they're keeping the bar, we've obviously talked the owner into keeping the bar.
The bar will be there.
The bar in the
That's
front.
the most important.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Will they still serve steak?
Yes, they will still serve steak, they're gonna keep, the same kind of menu.
But is this the same 5-star as 5-star Korean barbecue on East Wash?
Yes,
Okay, so it'll be
Oh,
5-star
it's the same.
Korean barbecue.
yes it is.
Is it the same owner?
That's,
But he wanted to keep 5-star barbecue instead of Korean barbecue, so I think for a while, there'll be some sorting that out as people wander into the door for ribs, but.
So,
they'll have
Kurt, is that
kalbi,
good
yeah.
or is that really good?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh. Yeah,
Well,
Korean
Well,
barbecue is
brought up in my
awesome.
meeting.
I mean, I'll just say that. That's,
Yeah.
that's,
okay,
I'm
so are we ready to, any other relevant discussion, folks, here? Now, motion was made, it was seconded.
I don't know if I got that.
No, I don't think there was a. So
I'll
I'm not
move.
sure what,
What we're doing?
what are we moving to approve?
Yeah,
It's basically replacing replacing the white sign that's on, if you look in the color rendering, the top photo underneath underneath Fitzgerald's and the digital display, that's going to say 5-star barbecue.
how about if our motion says that because we don't have the picture that he had on there, how about if our motion says that we're approving the placement of a white sign that will be submitted to staff, and
That-
staff will make sure it's okay.
That's fine.
with What we said.
I think I like that motion.
I would have
now.
probably,
On the canopies and on that sign.
Yes.
I would have probably just done administrative approval if they were replacing an existing sign with
Yeah.
the same dimensions. That wouldn't even have
Wow,
been here.
so
So.
it won't have even come here, imagine that now.
But I wanted David Reed to have a chance to vote. So.
Okay, I
that's
call
really
this
just a
question, all of
facade.
those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, needs a motion to adjourn. And thank you for your, okay, second, we are adjourned. Thank you for all your patience and.